everyone. We will get started. We get a little jump at the microphone over there, but we are ready to get started. Thank you all for your patience. I'm Sarah Klein. I am the Executive Director of the Epilepsy Foundation of Colorado, and I'm so happy to see all of your beautiful faces here today. I have the privilege of introducing our next speaker, who is Dr. Katie Polovitz, who I think some of you may already know. Dr. Polovitz is coming to us originally from the University of North Dakota School of Health Medicine and Health Services, where she did her medical degree. Then she moved to the wonderful state of Colorado, where she did her residency in Neurology and her Epilepsy fellowship at the University of Colorado Health Sciences Center. She currently treats patients with epilepsy at the Littleton Adventist Hospital and is an epileptologist at Neurology of the Rockies, in addition to being the Chief Medical Officer of Neurovative Diagnostics, and she's the past president of the Colorado Society for Clinical Neurologists. She also serves as Vice Chair of the Professional Advisory Board at the Epilepsy Foundation of Colorado. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Polovitz.
All right, guys, so she said I'm from North Dakota. There's this accent. Please don't judge me for it or think that I am not as intelligent. You can judge me based on what I tell you in this talk today, okay? All right, just warning you about the accent. Let's see. Okay, so I do not at all claim to be an expert on marijuana, but I'm a seizure doctor here in Colorado, and it has been an interesting experiment since 2013. So I'm a self-proclaimed weedologist now. And when I went to medical school, I didn't know that I would be learning all about marijuana, but I'm also not a marijuana naysayer. I'm somebody who believes that marijuana is a medication, and so I've had to learn anything that I can about marijuana, and I'm going to present to you today where the obstacles are, what we've learned, and actual scientific data. Because my first goal as a doctor is to do no harm. That's the first goal that we have in medical school. And if we don't know about something, we can't recommend that somebody use it. So we're going to talk about the history of the medicinal use. Dr. Kane went into that already, so there's just going to be a little tiny bit of overlap. We're going to talk about what has been the Colorado experience. And we all have been part of that here, talking about the science and then the lack of science, and where do we go with it. And then actual Epidiolex data. So Epidiolex is the first FDA-approved marijuana-containing product in history. And so we're going to actually talk about the scientific data that went into getting it FDA-approved. Okay, so marijuana has been around for a long time. It's been around as long as the human experience has been written down. So as long as we as humans have been able to write something down, we've had marijuana be a medication. And we've been using it for many, many different purposes throughout the years. Again, I do not claim to know, like Dr. Kane knows about the plant. I'm absolutely not a botanist. And I must have missed the fun times in college to learn this, but my patients tell me indica is more of your traditional couch lock type of weed, and then the sativa is like you can smoke the weed and still have energy. This is what I'm told. So I don't know anything about botany, but this is just my patients have kept me informed on the different kinds of marijuana that are available. Like Dr. Kane was just talking about, there are two different kinds of psychoactive components. The THC, which is the fun stuff that makes you high, and then the CBD, which we're going to talk more about today. So throughout history, cannabinoids have been used. We, like I said, as long as the human experience has been able to be written down, people have described using marijuana in various ways. Crushing it, making it into a salve for what they called rheumatism back in the day, so rubbing it on different things. I have a lot of patients who use the different lotions for neuropathy. We've used it for livestock feed. The hemp has been used for various things, for clothing. So it has been used for many, many years. Now, some of the first documented use for absent-mindedness, you kind of wonder if that could be people who were having focal seizures and staring off, and that was one of the first documented uses that could have been for epilepsy. And then in medieval times, it actually got documented as used for epilepsy. All right, so in the United States, guys, it was available over the counter. You could just walk on in, you know, I noticed even before Tylenol was available, you could get your marijuana over the counter. It was a common analgesic, and analgesic means pain medicine. So it was used commonly in the United States. But then there was anti-marijuana propaganda that started happening. And again, I don't say that or claim that I'm a marijuana expert, but last time I checked, reefer madness, I have no idea what that is. The last time I saw somebody high, usually they don't get mad, they just kind of go night-night. You know, and so this was a bit, unfortunately, politically driven and a bit racially discriminatory with this. This was an anti-marijuana movie talking about drug-crazed abandon, and it's going, women cry for it, men die for it. And so there was an anti-marijuana movement in the United States, which led to the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937, banning it from its use and its sales. Then it went one step further, and this part has been the hardest part. Like I said, in medicine, my first goal is to do no harm. And as a scientist in medicine, you need to know the science behind anything you're prescribing. But what happened was marijuana was made a Schedule I drug. Have you guys heard of that before, Schedule I? Okay, there's different schedules to controlled substances, and a Schedule I drug is the most controlled substance. Okay, and that means, Schedule I drug definition actually means high potential for abuse and addiction with no accepted medical uses and no safe level of use. And that's absolutely incorrect about marijuana. This was supposed to be a holding spot for marijuana as a Schedule I drug, and unfortunately, since the Nixon administration, it has not moved from there. This has been where any science that could be done, other than apparently at the University of Mississippi, where they're having like some gnarly looking weed that doesn't even look like weed anymore. That's the people who are studying it. And the last time I checked, I don't think Mississippi is the place where we should be studying marijuana. So it's basically saying that marijuana is as dangerous as heroin. And again, as a scientist, we know that that's not true. And actually, there's a thing called LD50. That's the lethal dose, 50% of the lethal dose. How much you'd have to take for it to kill you, 50% of that dose. And marijuana, it would take so much that usually upon ingestion, it is not going to kill somebody. Alcohol can kill somebody in intoxication. Heroin absolutely can. Basically, every drug out there can. But marijuana, the LD50 is so high that you probably can't die from ingesting it. Now there are secondary causes if you have like psychosis or a bad high or whatever. Yes, you could get injured as a result of that. But not just taking in the marijuana in and of itself should not kill somebody. So this Schedule I is where a lot of the problems came. For people like me, who believe that marijuana is absolutely a medication, but as a scientist, I need to know, like Dr. Kane just presented things that makes my head spin, okay? I don't follow along with a lot of that stuff and didn't take a botany class in undergrad or anything like that. And so I need to know which components, if it works for epilepsy, which parts and what should I be telling patients about and how do I tell them what could be potential harm? So this has been a massive holdup for the science part. Just for some context here, guys, like I said, heroin's also a Schedule I. Cocaine is a Schedule II drug. So it's saying marijuana is worse for you than cocaine. Okay, and I think everybody here knows that that's not the truth. So cocaine actually was used as a anesthesia medicine, and it's used currently for some eye testing, some very specific eye testing. So those are two specific medical uses. But marijuana, as a Schedule I drug, is not where it should have landed. And that's where a lot of the science got halted. Okay, so how the heck does it work? Well, we're not quite sure yet, but we're learning more as we go. There's a lot of stuff that happens that causes seizures, as we all know. But we do know there's this particular protein that when somebody has a seizure, it surges, it increases, and then it makes it easier for the seizure to spread and get worse. And so in some of the animal models so far, the mice models of epilepsy, we've seen that CBD can block that. So that's at least starting to get into some of the science. This is like music to my ears to have anything represented as far as the science, okay? Because a lot of people have the stories, and we need the science. All right, Sanjay Gupta did a CNN expose. Just show of hands, how many people saw it? Right. Okay, show of hands. How many people, if you feel like answering, how many people with epilepsy have friends, neighbors, bank tellers telling them, oh, if you have epilepsy, you should smoke weed? Right, everybody's telling you that. Everybody's telling you that. And a lot of it came with this expose. So an important part of the puzzle, because what this ultimately led to is us being able to start the research that has been so abandoned because it's a Schedule I drug. So Sanjay Gupta in August of 2013 talked with a family of a little girl here in Colorado. She has a very unfortunate kind of epilepsy called Dravet syndrome. Have you guys heard of that? And Dravet syndrome is it's a mutation in the sodium channel. So sodium, there's an important balance that keeps somebody from having seizures, sodium and potassium balance that has to happen. And this is a mutation in that sodium channel. And it's something that's identified early in childhood, and it leads neurons to getting very, very excited. Excited neurons cause seizures. So what happens is people start to lose their milestones because they're so busy having seizures or recovering they can't learn the ABCs. So it's a very devastating kind of epilepsy. And unfortunately, this Charlotte has this kind of epilepsy, was having up to 50 seizures daily. She was losing her milestones because she was so busy having seizures or recovering. And she was told that it was the end of the road. They had tried everything when she was age 5. And she was started on a high CBD, low THC. So remember, THC is the stuff that gets you high, the fun stuff, and then CBD is the not so fun stuff that we're looking at scientifically. And her seizures decreased down to 2 to 3 nocturnal seizures per month. And she started to have a milestone improvement, right? Because she wasn't having so many seizures, she was able to start to think, start to learn, start to feed herself, all of these important things that you do when you're not having seizures or recovering from them. So this expose, in my opinion, was very important. But as a scientist, it was a bit of cart ahead of the horse, because now everybody is moving to Colorado, and they're coming to my epilepsy clinic, and they're like, all right, doc, should I smoke it? Should I vape it? Should I eat it? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea. The science hasn't been done. It's a Schedule I drug, right? And the Charlotte's Web, named after Miss Charlotte, is the most popular strain, but again, it hasn't been scientifically studied the way that Tylenol has been scientifically studied, or basically anything, any medication that's been FDA approved. So we've been in this conundrum in Colorado and now in many, many other states in the country. Dr. Nuck, who was up here earlier, and Dr. Chapman, as well as Dr. Press when he was in his residency training, did a really important study. Because doctors, in order to suggest something, we want to study it. And so they did this study, and they actually looked at what we call responder bias. Because in studies, you can have different biases, and you want a study that's free of bias. And so they were noticing this trend in their patients, that people who had uprooted their entire lives, moved their other kids, moved their families, moved the dog, all the way from Arkansas to here, they were more likely to say that they were having an improvement with the CBDs that they were getting from various sources than people who already lived in Colorado. And I get it. These people were desperate. I do not blame them. It's just, again, the cart ahead of the horse. So let me talk to you about this. So 75 different patients, 57% with improvement in control of seizures. That's incredible. So if they had moved to Colorado, the responder rate, it's really stupid, guys, just trust me. The way we do epilepsy studies, I hate this part of it, okay? And I am an epileptologist, so I don't like this part of our studies. But what we call a responder, meaning they're having a good effect, is if somebody has a greater than or equal to 50% reduction in their seizures. So if they had moved to Colorado, the families reported almost 50%. If they were already here, only 22%. So again, the desire was a bit more than the actual results that we were seeing. It's not like the epilepsies are different in Minnesota than they're here. So this is where the scientific conundrum is. What we do when a medication is launched is you guys have never heard about it, I've never heard about it until the clinical trials are done. It's not available. And then when it becomes available, it gets its FDA approval. But it goes through all of these different things. So it goes through, okay, is there something associated with this? You pick out the different people that it might work for, then you do the clinical trials to make sure it's safe and effective, and then we hear about the drug. Well, here's the science with marijuana. There's none of that up until recently, and all we had was marijuana available without the science, right? Schedule I drug can't study it scientifically. So it's been, for lack of a better word, it's been a conundrum. We've got marijuana rapidly available. Everybody's being told by everybody that they saw this expose on CNN, you gotta try it. Everybody's being told that, right? So it's very, very difficult because now we have a medication that's widely available but hasn't been studied. Which dispensary do you go to? Who do you get it from? I, as an experiment, went to dispensaries and said, I have epilepsy, which medicine, or which strains should I take? And I heard, 3 different answers from 3 different bud tenders. I know the terms for all this stuff, guys. All right, so unverified effectiveness, and then there's drug interaction potential, right? If I'm gonna prescribe you guys lamotrigine, I'm gonna tell you, oh crap, if you're on Depakote, there's an interaction between those 2 medicines. Oh, and watch out for antibiotic medicines, and this and that. These are the things we know about medications. But that's with marijuana. Again, it's available. We haven't studied it scientifically until recently. But I'm going to present that data to you. So then I tried to, actually, let me talk about this first. So in 2015, so we've been legal here for a while at that point, the FDA actually looked at 18 different CBD products. And I've had patients that pay like a whole boatload of money for these things a month. And they're asking me how much should they take, and I'm saying I have no idea because I don't know the science behind it yet. And this is the kind of stuff that drives me nuts, guys. So 2015, 18 different CBD products, and 6 out of the 18 didn't even contain CBD. I don't know what the heck they contained. Maybe it's that broken down crap from Mississippi, I don't know. So, again, when there's no science, how can the scientists, the doctors guide people? We see these stories, we hear the stories, we trust me, we believe you. We just need the science to go with it. So I went to Dr. Google because I tried to put myself in a patient's shoes. And I said, all right, so I'm gonna ask CBD oil. Everybody's telling my patients, okay, you should use CBD. So then I said, what do they have to go through? I got over 1 million results. Marijuana for epilepsy, 1.5 million results. Marijuana doses for epilepsy, 330,000 results. CBD doses for epilepsy. I mean, all of these different things, and which one do you go to? Then I also looked on shopping, and you can go for the bargain price of Dr. Casseret's Stoned here for the retail price of $14.99, or you can spring for the Charlotte's Web every day, $149.99. Which one's better? How do we know? And in real clinical trials, I would have been able to answer that for you. So I try to place myself in what it's like to be somebody. When you're being told by everybody, you need to use marijuana because of these stories. Well, which marijuana do you use? All right, bear with me. It's going to get a little dry, guys, but I'm going to walk us through this, okay? Because now we got to talk about the science. It's not very sexy, but it's a very important part of what we do in medicine. It's the most important thing that we do. Because of cases like Charlotte's, there was at least granted orphan status with the FDA, which means even though it's a Schedule I drug, you can still study it because of these cases where it looks like it absolutely must be tried. So there was this open label trial. Now, open label trial just means it's not the same kind of strict trial that we usually have as our basis for all medicines, but they were able to do that. We'll get to that. So this just started the ball rolling. So Greenwich Pharmaceuticals, they have a representative and their medical science liaison here. They did the trials. So they started with an open label trial on Epidiolex. And that was in 2016 that evidence was reported. It was for all comers with any severe epilepsies. Severe intractable epilepsies. You're trying medicines, we're still having seizures. 11 different epilepsy centers throughout the United States were involved, and their other medications, their vagus nerve stimulators, they were all steady for 4 weeks prior to this study, okay? They tried to make it as scientific as possible. This is the kind of stuff that when doctors get together, this is what we talk about, be jealous. All right, and so the people in this study had to have really bad epilepsies. 4 or more countable seizures within 4 weeks' time. It's a lot of seizures. So anybody who was previously on any marijuana-containing product wasn't allowed to be in the study. Hence, Colorado centers, even though we had the largest number of patients, we did not land a single part of the study. So it was 11 different epilepsy centers throughout the United States, none of which were in the state of Colorado because of that reason. And they used this 99% pure Epidiolex, so it's a CBD oil. So bear with me, the 214 people came into the trial. The most common epilepsy syndromes were that Dravet syndrome, like Charlotte has, and then Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, which is just a grab bag for probably a whole bunch of different kinds of epilepsies, but it means that somebody has cognitive decline, and they also have many, many, many different kinds of seizures. And these are people who have bad epilepsies, guys, 0 to 7 medications at their baseline. So 7 medicines, that's a whole lot of medicines. These are the people who were put into the trial. Unfortunately, 9 people went into status epilepticus, which is continual seizures. And we found out some things about CBD. We found out that it's broken down by the liver, so we need to watch some things. The liver is also important we watch these liver enzymes, so we found out that there is potential harm, so we need to watch those things. The same potential harm is with lots of our medicines, trust me. Depakote, lamotrigine, you name it, most of them are broken down by the liver. So this is something that we didn't know before, though. This is important stuff. And somebody had hyperammonemia, which means it's a liver product. If it goes too high, it can make somebody rather confused. So these are the things that we learned. These are important things with the study. Again, the research we want was being done. So people had a positive response. 39% had a responder rate, which means 39% had a greater than 50% reduction in their seizures. And the best responders were people with Dravet syndrome, like Charlotte. So that was 32 different people. 4 patients went seizure-free in almost this 3-month-long trial. That's awesome. Compared to having 50 seizures, whatever she was having all the time, that is very good to see that kind of response. And it's actually very atypical in a medication trial to see that kind of a response. That's incredible. So there is science behind what people were telling us about. The responder rate, so about half of the people with Dravet syndrome had a 50% reduction in their seizures, which is awesome. And Lennox-Gastaut, about 36.8. So we were seeing pretty incredible outcomes. But again, this is not the kind of trial that we see, that we do. We don't do open label trials to get drugs FDA approved. So we also looked at these drug interactions, and we learned that Onfi, which is a really typical seizure medicine, and Depakote, which is also a seizure medicine that we use all the time, there are drug-drug interactions. The stuff we need to know before we can prescribe it. Okay, so they started the ball going there. Now they go to this kind of studies that we do on all medicines. Have you guys heard of randomized controlled trials? Wow, you are way more versed in things than I ever was before medical school. So, randomized controlled trials is the gold standard. That means you want to get rid of all bias. So the doctors can get biased if we really want something to work for somebody, and patients can get biased, as we learned. If they moved to Colorado, somehow the CBD worked better for them than if they were already here. That's not true, that's a bias. So what we did is a randomized controlled trial. You look at you look at people, they have no idea if they're getting the medication or if they're getting placebo. And the doctor has no idea if they're getting medication or if they're getting placebo. So there were 3 different trials done, 1 on Dravet and 2 on Lennox-Gastaut. And just quickly to go through this, it was published in 2017, ages 2 to 18, same like the previous study, a 4-week baseline beforehand and then a 4-week treatment. And what we saw is, again, this incredible responder rate. 43% of the patients with Dravet syndrome had a greater than 50% reduction in their seizures. That's awesome. So there's something about the way CBD works that really helps out with this bad kind of epilepsy. And 3 patients, again, were super responders where they went seizure-free. Lennox-Gastaut, when it was tried, so this was in 2018, and we looked at individuals aged 2 to 55 years old, so into my realm of medicine, which because I'm an adult doctor, and it was looking at drop seizures. And drop seizures can be very problematic for people's health, lots of injuries, and the variability can really lead somebody to be very isolated and not want to do things out of fear of seizures. And again, same kind of trial that was done like the other ones. And what we saw is 171 patients with an actual dose of the medicine up to 20 milligrams per kilogram per day. And the median percent reduction in monthly seizures was 43.9%, which again is incredible. Finally, some science that's helping to guide us on the experiment that has been Colorado over the past 5 years. And then the responder rate, 44%. And so again, typical drug trials, what we're seeing is about a third. So that is an improvement above that. So again, getting some science when we've been in a science-free environment. Most common side effects, these are things that are like awesome for doctors to tell you about, right? This is like if I was going to start anybody on any medicine, I would say, all right, dude, watch out for this, watch out for that, and it interacts with this medicine and that medicine. And then, so when we legalized in Colorado, and people would say, okay, should I vape it, smoke it, eat it, what should I do? I have no idea because it hasn't been studied. Now at least this has been studied. So I'm able to tell you, people experience somnolence, which is sleepiness, most common thing that we see with seizure medicines, right? Seizure medicines are the worst. Brain medicines are the worst ones out there. It's always baffling to me that I went into, into seizure medicine, where the first thing I talk about is medicines, because I actually personally hate medicine. So, but it is what we do for seizures. Diarrhea is one to watch out for. And that was experienced not at a high percentage, but in both the placebo and in the treatment group. And then also weight loss. So those are things that if you're going to try out Epidiolex, that you need to know about, okay? So now we have the drug trials. They're ready for FDA approval. What happens here in Colorado? Well, Amendment 64, which legalized marijuana, had a part of it that stated pharmacists won't have to ever dispense anything that contains any marijuana. So they won't ever have to dispense anything that has marijuana in it with Amendment 64. This is marijuana based. This is extracted straight from the plant, this pure CBD oil. And so what had to happen this summer is we had to get Governor Hickenlooper to sign this amendment that overrode that. So it was added on to Amendment 64, and they said, okay, except for this one, which has been FDA approved. Okay, so that was state specific. Other states have their own rules that again, another hurdle for marijuana, which has been demonized for far too long, and we know is medicine. Now we're getting the science, and we're still running into obstacles. This is probably the most important thing that I can say. The marijuana met GMP, good manufacturing practices. That is the most important thing, which means it was within the normal amount of variability for any drug. And that was something that, remember when the FDA looked at those 18 CBD containing products and 6 of them don't have CBD in them? That's not GMP. This passed good manufacturing practices. That is so exciting. And then the FDA approved it in June. It got rescheduled, guys. This one marijuana product went from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 5. That is, of the controlled substance, the least controlled you can have. And then it was available for prescription on October 29th. So this was a very properly timed symposium. We did not know that, but again, it's exciting that at least we're moving in the right direction. This will pave the road for many other marijuana-containing medications. We know we need to check liver tests, for lack of time, this is the stuff that you'll go over with your doctor about the doses. My takeaway is that marijuana is absolutely a medication. We all know that. But the scientific method, the way that we study medicine, hadn't been done until recently with Epidiolex. And we appreciate them for doing the science to prove what people were telling us about. But now we can say, okay, it's broken down by the liver, you gotta watch your liver tests, it interacts with these medicines, the stuff that we would tell anybody whenever we prescribe a medication. And now, as of the last 3 weeks, it's been available for prescription. It's our first FDA-approved use of marijuana, and I think that that is extremely exciting and far overdue. In my opinion, it's hard to get people to take their seizure medicines and adhere to taking them because I get it, you're being a human, you're busy living your life. It's hard to remember to take medicines and medicines stink. But the desire for marijuana to work and these stories might actually make people more likely to take it. So as a doctor where my field is in seizures, and to control the seizures, we have to take the medicines, and we have to take them as a superhuman, take them all the time. This one actually, I think, will be, people believe in it. And then I would take questions, but we're doing that at the end. So ask your questions on the little cards right around the corner to the left. But I just like to show my dogs. So here's Humphrey, and here's Ernie, and Humphrey actually has epilepsy as well. So he's on phenobarbital and has to have his liver functions tested. So, all right, guys, thank you for being an awesome audience, and I'm so happy to see you all here on this audience.